talk about our crypto king, Michael Saylor. With a decline in Bitcoin, is Strategy, his company, safe from being liquidated? And we'll explore what might happen to his company and what potential things might take it down. So, the first metric we're going to go over is how well he has done over the past couple of years. And as you can see, in the early 2000s, his software company experienced the dot-com bubble, and he became one of the biggest losers of the dot-com era. He lost $13.53 billion, and it was mainly because he was doing fraud. Now, his company's petered along for a long time and hadn't really gone anywhere for about 15 years, up until 2020. 2020 was the big year. It was the year of change. We had coronavirus. We had shifting political landscapes. We had everything. But the biggest change was Jerome Powell printing a ton of money. The government printed money that was going out of style. If you remember, inflation hit 9%. So all this freshly printed money needed somewhere to go. And so I started going into stupid things. NFTs, you could buy one of these NFTs for $91 million. That was the highest it was ever sold for. CryptoPunks, collectibles. Some of your friends might have tried to get you into fraud with them. Everything was going bonkers during this time. And so Bitcoin naturally went to the moon. And Michael Saylor started buying a ton of it. Now, to understand what Bitcoin is, I have a link to my Substack, which you can look at and find out what Bitcoin actually is. But I assume that most people know. It's a peer-to-peer transaction system that was usually meant for selling drugs or other things on the dark web, but eventually became an asset that was supposed to hedge against money printing because it has a limited supply. Which, in my opinion, it's wrong because I think it's just an avenue of speculation, like all other cryptos, but Michael Saylor thought different. Michael Saylor ended this 5-year period I'm talking about right now, holding the largest amount of Bitcoin, equal to 4 to 5% of all Bitcoin. So he's one of the biggest players in all Bitcoin, which he importantly bought all this Bitcoin using common stock, convertible debt, and preferred equity. Now, as it turns out, Bitcoin actually isn't a safe haven asset. This investment is not gold or silver. So as you can see, throughout this year, as the government's been printing more money, Bitcoin has actually been going down. And as the Nasdaq's been going down, it's been going down. So its thesis isn't playing out. Where the thesis was that there are two main reasons why you should buy Bitcoin is one is because you hedge against the market, which it's not doing. And two is that you can hedge against fiat debasement, which it's also not doing. So what happens if this speculative asset that's on Strategy's balance sheet goes down? So this is a bit oversimplified, but the Strategy's strategy is to buy Bitcoin as long as the value of the company trades above the value of the Bitcoin that he bought, he can raise more money to buy more Bitcoin. And you may be asking yourself, well, James, isn't that fraud? You can't do that, right? Not according to Michael Saylor. But what happens if the value of the stock, the value of his gold, then decreases and the value of his company also decreases at the same time? That's kind of the situation that he's in, where his actual stock has decreased by like 40% this year, 40% in the past year. So he's down massively. And the whole structure of his company is he needs more people to buy shares of Strategy down here so that he can basically repay the people up here. And he needed those people to buy shares to repay the people up here so he could raise more funds to repay the people up here. So if that's not a pyramid scheme, I don't know what is. It's like a delayed pyramid scheme in a way. It's a very funny thing to take a part of. So I would say there's two things that need to happen for this company to default. And that would be capital markets lose faith, which may happen. I'll explain that in a second. And the price of Bitcoin has to fall, which is already happening. Michael Saylor is now, he has a $12.4 billion net loss in quarter 4 of 2025, driven by a $17.4 billion unrealized loss on its Bitcoin holdings. Overall, Michael Saylor is actually net even on the amount of money that he's made on Bitcoin, meaning like you could have just bought Bitcoin and done better than him, is the point. Which I don't know why people give him the money to do that. He has kind of these paper losses that if Bitcoin drops more or his stock drops more, his company will eventually become insolvent. It's not this year, probably, maybe not even next year. But in any case, this is not a good company, not something that should ever be invested in. Capital markets are the second part of this, which they're very tricky to gauge, in my opinion. But what we do know from history is that at all times, even if you're Bernie Madoff, even if you're the greatest investors of all time, your Ponzi scheme never, ever turns into something better than a Ponzi scheme. It's always a Ponzi scheme. It's always tainted. You can't really make it better. So I think eventually people will realize MicroStrategy's scheme is that it is a Ponzi scheme. And I think once retail realizes that retail makes up 46% of Strategy's inflows or something like that, it's a ridiculous amount. I think it's going to be a swift, once everyone knows that everyone knows, then it will be a swift correction, but not until that point. There's not really that many headlines about Strategy. And here's the thing that I think could start this inquiry into the Ponzi scheme. It's actually the Epstein files. See, Epstein from the grave is doing the Lord's work, and he's taken down crypto titans. I know there are many connections between crypto giants and Jeffrey Epstein. For example, early investments in Coinbase were but invested with partnership with Jeffrey Epstein. And Blockstream, which is the infrastructure company. And it was even said in one of Epstein's emails that Saylor is a complete creep. He has no personality, like a zombie on a drug, which is crazy to say coming from a pedophile, but it's wild. And the senior contributor to Bitcoin, or one of the senior contributors, was Adam Back, and he really messed up. He's really in the files as like a person of interest who probably should go to jail, and he's one of the biggest contributors ever to Bitcoin. So people have been getting mad over this. You've tainted Bitcoin forever. You've contributed to the downfalls of Bitcoin. This is the only thing you'll be remembered for, is its downfall. So people are starting to turn on them. I think that the discovery of these people being in the financial circles and the immoral circles of Jeffrey Epstein will actually lead to more questions about what exactly are we doing here with crypto? What are we doing with Michael Saylor? Does this make any sense to do? And I think they're going to find the solution is going to be to at least disinvest and go to something safer. So all of this connections, all of this combined with the Ponzi scheme nature of MicroStrategy could mean a very bad couple of years for Michael Saylor and Strategy. I just really hope that he's learned from his past mistakes of fraud, and he's cleaned all the skeletons out of his closet before the SEC starts raiding it. Because people will want blood once they find out how dumb and fraudulent this is. It's gonna be wild. I think that once real price discovery happens and they figure out that they paid this man 2.5 times the price of the Bitcoin that he holds to trade it for them, they're going to figure out this is wild and this company is absolutely bonkers stupid. There's no reason that this company should exist as a company that you can buy stock in. If you want to buy Bitcoin, you should buy Bitcoin, not some guy as a mutual fund in between you and Bitcoin. It defeats the whole purpose of Bitcoin.